Good evening again, everyone. Please don't be alarmed by the change of voice. This is Danielle Macklin. I am an EdTech coach with NUITEQ, and I'm filling in for Jack tonight while he is with the company in Sweden. So as we go through our webinar, Kelly will be presenting information on the SEATS lesson activity template. If at any point you have questions, please feel free to send me a chat and I will relay those questions to Kelly at an opportune time. And if everyone's ready, Kelly, we can go ahead and begin.
All right. Welcome, guys. Glad you could join us this evening. And I'm going to tell you about SEATS this evening and show you some different ways that you can use this activity in your classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. I'm going to go to snow.live. And snow.live is the web-based version of Snowflake. On your PCs, if you have an internal PC on your ClearTouch board, you're going to have the PC-based version or app. And at home, you can use snow.live to create the lessons or activities, and then they'll sync to your Snowflake app on your panel. So I'm going to sign in here. And when SEATS was originally designed, it was created for basically a seating chart for you to put your kids' pictures in or your students' names and then rearrange them. Oh, apparently I didn't type in the right information here. So SEATS was originally designed to basically make like a seating chart for your class, but some of the educators had made some really cool lessons with SEATS that you'll be able to use and create on your own. So I'm going to actually show you a few of these first. So I'm going to explore. So this is going to pull up thousands of lessons from the community. And we can actually search for different types of lesson activities here. And I'm going to click on SEATS. I'm going to go to Explore first. And then we're going to go Activity Types. And we're going to click on SEATS. So here's one that Mary Al created called Snowgle. And so we're going to play this lesson activity.
So with this particular lesson activity, Snowgle is kind of a play on the idea of boggle. So all of the tiles can be swapped around, moved to different locations. And the goal of this particular lesson is to look at the grid and determine what words can be made from the letters that are connected. There's also the ability to, and I gotta make my screen a little larger, to shuffle. So once you shuffle, you can move around the tiles. So it has infinite capabilities of how many times you would like to play this particular lesson activity.
Yeah, and Danielle's lesson on coding that she created in SEATS is just a super clever idea and another way you can use it if you think outside the box. And I just love that lesson.
Thank you. Yeah, it was super fun to make, just to go outside of my comfort zone of what coding is, not knowing anything about coding. So that's one example. I'll go back to the lesson community and share more. Kelly walked you through some of the search, so you can search by age group, activity type, subjects, countries, and by NUITEQ teachers. I'll go back to SEATS. So we can see all of the ones within the community. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to sort by NUITEQ teachers. I'm part of our global content team. We have a vetting process with our lessons, so we do a lot of peer review, making sure that lessons that we've created are lessons that work within the community and meet a high level of rigor, meet academic standards, and are written with an idea of pedagogy. So go ahead and click on, I'll just show the coding one that I made. So with this one, it's the fun idea of, why did the chicken cross the road? In this particular lesson, the goal is to start at one of the beginning points and make it to the end by moving the tiles. So thinking of it, helping younger students understand computer commands. So like move left, move right, move down, that idea. And again, there's the possibility of shuffling. And my students would, if they were starting, I'll start with the blue one, trying to get the chicken from here to there without going through the potholes, I'd have to move my tiles around. So I'd have to go this way. Down, over. When I created this lesson, I will admit that I definitely played it a lot just to make sure that I was doing it correctly and that it made a little bit of sense. And I also added a lot of modifications to make it a more simple template.
We've played it as well.
We shared. Yes.
We played it as well in a couple of the younger grades, and the kids just absolutely love it.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah. I want to see pictures. I want to see it.
I know. I need to send some pictures for sure. It's fun.
So with this lesson, with all of the SEATS activities, and with all of our lessons, you have the ability to edit the lesson. So from the editing information, all of the seat tiles that I created were just JPEG images that I put in. And that's what provided those images. And then the information, the instructions of how to play with the gameplay options, if you're doing it whole class, individual, and a few different ways to do it. I also included the backgrounds to edit and the standards that tied into it. So that's something that all of us at NUITEQ really work hard to do as part of the global content team, is making sure we are creating lessons that have applicable standards. So if I go back to my lesson activities, so Kelly and I will show you how to create one. We can talk a little bit about the traditional, using it as a seating chart / student picker or selector. I think picker sounds a little different. So as a student selector, one way to do that. So from our seats, so with our blank template, it automatically defaults to a 3x3 grid. So let's do let's demo. And then as I create my content, I can either do so with the plus button, and I'm just going to do numbers for now, just to give you an idea of how it would look on the screen. I can hit create content, or if I press enter, it pops down as the line below. So enter gives me the line below, but when I go create content, it gives me the line above. So if you realize you needed to add something at the beginning. All right, I think I can do one more. So there's my kind of basic overview. I'm going to just enlarge the size of those numbers so we can see them a little clearer. And the unique thing with this is the ability to customize those rows. So it defaults just a 3x3 square, but I can add up to 10 rows and 10 columns. So when I do that, you'll still see, oh, my preview disappeared. Let's try that again. We're having all sorts of awesome tech issues today.
Right.
All right, let me go ahead and just hit play. Maybe that'll allow the preview to be seen a little bit better. All right, so you can see we have, our 10 by 10, so pretty large square selection. Now, if you're doing this on your panel, obviously you would be able to see these a lot more clear than just me showing on my tiny little MacBook.
And she has 10 by 10 selected, but because she only put in 10 choices, there's only one row of 10 showing up. So.
Exactly. So if I wanted to, I'll make this a little smaller. Let's do 7 by 7. So with this, you have the opportunity to also add scoring. So scoring is when you click the buttons in certain ways, and I'll show what that looks like in just a moment. So that can go all the way up to 100. We're just going to do it with 1. Oops. And we'll do this to 5. You also have the ability to change the shape. So right now I had everything set at squares. I can change it to hexagons or circles. Here we go, that's a little better to see now. I'm gonna make this just a little smaller just so it shows up better on our smaller screen right now. And I see we did have a question come in from Scott. He asked, can the choices be moved into the blank spaces? Absolutely. So with all of our boxes, they can be moved anywhere throughout the grid. So you can see I've changed the shape of it. Currently, I have the settings at Snap to Grid. If I disable that, I can move my images anywhere on the screen and not just within the squares. So it gives you a lot of freedom as far as where you're putting things and relocating things. It just gives you the grid layout to set it up and make it look pretty. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that grid back. And if at any point you have questions and I haven't answered them, please just ask again. I will do my best to clarify those questions. So with this lesson activity, you could do this as a traditional seating chart. So where you wanted to put your kids, if you had traditional rows in your classroom, you could pop their names in there or their desk numbers. You could even add a picture of their little faces as the background, and then relocate them to any place you want. Or you could use it as a student selector. So right now I'm going to lock everything in place. So now I can't move any of my numbers. And if I select the select option, you'll see that white box is going through and it is going to randomly stop. It selected that 5. So if I had this with my students' names, this would be a really great way to call on students to maybe share in class or to come up to the board and use one of the lesson activities or assign any responsibility in class.
You could even use it in math, and you can have double-digit numbers or single digits like Danielle has now, and also put different operations or operation symbols mixed in there as well, and do the select. And then the kids have to wait till it lands on one number, then it lands on the multiplication symbol, another number, and then the students have to solve the problem. So it makes doing math lessons or problems a lot more fun, I guess, because it's random.
Yeah, absolutely. Get that added kind of engagement, that element of surprise. So with this right now, I have it locked. When it's in the lock mode, it's scoring. So this could be used if you wanted to award points to a team. Maybe you were doing a lesson activity and you were keeping track of points that a group was earning or winning, or how many times they were sharing in class, or correct answers, or anything that you could imagine awarding points to. And to assign points, you swipe up on the numbers. So as we're going through, and I have the numbers set, I think I had it set for 5 points each. So right now there's nothing, but if I swipe up, they've got 5, 10, 15, 20, etc., etc., etc. So that's one of the options with using seats. So within our Snowflake lessons, we have the opportunity to add all of our lesson descriptions. So this is what the lesson would be about. This would also be how to play a lesson. So if you were doing an activity that you were assigning to students on your Snowflake classes, we can go through how to manage your classes in just a moment. You can provide the directions of what students would need to do. So like the math lesson that Kelly had suggested, where they had to select numbers and then mathematical operations, and then solve those problems, you could provide those directions of what you wanted students to do after you've created the lesson activity. So you can also add screenshots. This would be images that would help explain how the lesson could be played. And we also have the ability to add YouTube videos. So you can go ahead and add in any YouTube link, just copy and paste, or you can search for a YouTube lesson. So I would maybe want to search for addition. And then I could find the lesson that I wanted, add it in, and I can determine the length that I wanted that video to play. Now, obviously, I would have previewed this lesson ahead of time before playing it in class, but I can change the timing of it. So I could have the lesson start maybe 30 seconds in, and I only want my students to watch the first minute after that. So there we go. So I can edit the time of that. And that takes place if you have the lesson assigned to show before the activity begins. So by switching that off, the YouTube link is available, but it's not going to play before the lesson activity. Turning it on will play the lesson activity. So to give you an idea what I mean by that. So here we have our fun addition song. Go ahead and close that out. And then now my students would be able to participate in the lesson activity. And then I have my information that helps make it easier to search. So if I share this to the community, I would assign the age levels for the students, the subject that it was applicable to, the country, and I could also assign any additional resources. So this might be a Google Doc that I wanted my students to work on, or a link to another website where they would get supplemental materials or information. So any of that stuff would be provided.
And what I love too is that by providing the links in there, basically the software has everything in it that the students need to learn the skill, complete the lesson, and then even do extra activities by putting in those links.
Yep, absolutely. So it's really great too if you have students, or if you're doing like a flipped classroom and you have all of the material ready for the students to complete ahead of the lesson, and then they come into class and you can get really in depth with it. So they have everything that they need. And it's great too, if a kid is out of school, if they're sick, whatever the case may be, everything's all in that one spot. We also have your keywords. So these would be like your searchable tags. So that if somebody was searching for your lesson in the community, these would be words that may be related to your lesson activity. So if I was doing a math one, I would say math, addition, facts, etc., etc., etc. And then I can add in my content standards. So we do have Common Core listed at the top. The team is currently in the process of creating lesson activities for every Common Core lesson standard for ELA math, and then soon to be Next Gen Science. So we've all been working pretty diligently on that. We were hoping to have it done. I'm sure Jack could give a better time frame on it, but we're hoping soon. We'd like to have it finished. All right, we also have, and with all of our lesson activities, we have the same preview screens. So this is going to be the same on every activity, where you have the ability to change your font, to change the font size. I can even go bigger to show you. Change the color, and then add a shadow. Shadow makes it a little bit more bold. So that's one feature of that. You can also change the themes. So this would just be our background. We have solid static themes, and then we also have some that are more dynamic that have movable parts in the beginning. Dungeon was always one of my favorite when I taught middle schoolers. And with this, you have a little bit of an animation that begins before the lesson activity. Oh, let's get that. Or you would if I didn't have a YouTube video. So it would have a little introduction video beforehand. And I really liked the animated backgrounds. It was just a really good transition. So as soon as I hit play on the lesson, I had just a few extra seconds where I could organize materials, or I could get my students into groups. It was kind of a really good, like, okay, let's quickly move, but we've got a little bit of time to do that. And with my middle schoolers, it was usually a challenge of like, okay, we've got just a few seconds, like everybody needs to be with a partner, once the lesson's ready to start. And that couple seconds of the animation gave them an opportunity to do that. So those are some of our themes. We also have the ability to add in our own backgrounds. So you can add in backgrounds by browsing just anything that is on your own personal device and bringing in those. This would be any images that are saved as JPEGs. See if I have anything in there. So I've been working on creating lessons for India standards. So there's background on that. Or I could also search my Google Drive, OneDrive. I could do a basic image search. So this would just be like your basic Google search. So if I were doing a math lesson, well, we already passed Valentine's Day, so I can't, leap year. Here's our next holiday. I think most teachers can relate to really wanting and having things that are themed. So maybe there's my background that might relate to whatever the lesson is that I was doing. We also have backgrounds loaded in our content gallery. Searching through the backgrounds. And just really bright, kind of fun backgrounds just to make it easy for you. So there's not a whole lot of extra back work that you need to put in on creating your lesson activity. And then I can change my gameplay rules, ordered or randomized. Ordered is going to be, as you see them listed here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Randomized, they would be in any random order. I also can add in a timer. So as you saw in that lesson, the Snowball lesson, there was a timer that began on it. The rules of that lesson were students had, I think, 3 minutes to find as many words as they wanted. And the timer doesn't begin until you actually move one of those pieces. So that's one way to do it.
You can also have on the Clear Touch panel, you can also separate or divide your screen into 2 separate zones. And so when you have those timers going on each of the activities, if you have, you can split it up into 4 even, or 3, but if you have 2 up at the board, the kids love racing against each other, basically, to find the words. So it's good for centers or station activities, group work. Kids love it.
Absolutely. They're so competitive.
Yeah. And I love how easy it is to create. Like everything's right here for you, like super easy. You can put in your images, your all the parts of the lesson, the descriptions.
All right, so with that lesson activity, one of the options that I have, if I were satisfied with my activity, I could then send it to my students. So one of the features of Snow.Live that's really unique, and that's actually going to be the theme of our next webinar, is how to create classes. Is we have the ability to create classes and manage the students and then review the progress of their lesson activities. So I've selected to send this assignment to my students. I can select my class, which has very little students in it. I can determine which students I want to send the lesson to. So if I had this scaffolded for different levels, I could send it to students individually. And I can assign a due date of when they would need to complete this lesson activity by. And then if at any point a new student joined in, I could just add that student in.
And as Danielle said, you could scaffold the lessons per student. So maybe some students are a little lower than others. Some students are ready for 3-digit, some are at 2-digit, some are 1. You can send those individual lessons, which makes it great for differentiation.
Yeah. And then the students can complete it because Snow.Live is a web-based application. They really just have to get any web browser and they can access their account and play the activity. So I had students at my former district, my middle schoolers would do it with their Chromebooks, and even not having a touch screen, they were able to navigate just with their mouse. So they could still play the activity in the same idea. So there, that lesson's been sent to my students. And then I can go ahead and review the progress of those students. So there's one lesson, obviously nobody has completed this lesson yet, but it would show me who has opened it or has not opened it, who it was assigned to. And because this came up at our last webinar, I did try to show what it looks like when a student does complete an assignment. So this was an assignment that I think we made at maybe our last one. And it shows me the student had opened the assignment, their score on that assignment. So it was a gradable assessment, and we have 8 gradable assessment templates. Shows me how long that student took in completing the task. And then it also gives me an opportunity to provide direct feedback to that student. So when I click feedback, it's going to show me out of 24 possible answers, they got 18 correct. And then I can go through and I can see the specifics of which ones they answered correctly and which ones were answered incorrectly. This view is going to be the same for my student. So when my student completes the assignment, this pop-up will appear as well. It'll show them their score, and it'll show them which questions they earned points for and which ones were incorrect. And then feedback that I would want to provide to my students. So that's my generic thing. Great job.
Did you see we have a question from Angela.
Okay.
She inputted 18 student names in the content, but when she clicks on play, it only shows her 10 choices.
Okay. My guess, Angela, let me see. I'm going to go back to that lesson activity.
My guess would be the rows and columns.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So I'll walk you through that part. So you've created your content with your student names, just like we did before. When you go to customize content, and I'll go a little slow just in case you're following along with me. Your rows and your columns are going to provide you the boxes. If you don't have enough boxes, then the information that you put in wouldn't appear. So if I only had 1 row and 1 column, I'm only going to have that 1 piece of information. Or 2 rows and 1 column, since I think I put in 3. So you can see I'm only going to have information filled based off of my rows and columns. Please let me know if that did not answer your question. I can go back through and show you again. That would work.
When I first started creating seats, I came across that, like, why isn't, Biden showing up? And then I had to remember to go back to the manage content and change the rows and columns, because it's a little bit different than some of the other activities. Did that help you, Angela? Oh, she's typing.
Okay. I really like the feature of disabling snap to grid. So snap to grid means it just has to be kind of close, and then it'll pop in and it'll stay really ordered. But when you select to not snap it in the grid, you have the ability to move things everywhere. So this would be great if you wanted to maybe create your own background and then have students move these pieces individually into certain locations. You're not limited just to the rows and the columns that you've created.
But am I correct that you're still only going to get that many dots, correct, or that many squares? Still, even with snap to grid, you still have to have your rows and columns selected, correct?
Yes, okay. I believe that is correct.
And Angela says sort of the problem is that she unclicked snap to grid. So okay. Angela, you still need to, if you have 18 students, you have to have, the right amount of rows and columns. That at least, over 18 or 18, if that makes sense.
The reason for that being when you go to play the lesson activity and when you start it, everything kind of automatically goes back to that default grid position. So even though I may have moved these around, having them in the grid is going to default that. All right. So I'm going to show a few examples of some of the SEATS lesson activities. Now that we've kind of gone through a little bit of the basic construction, and this just to give you some inspiration and ideas of how these have been used in our community. I do feel this is one of the underutilized lesson templates, and I am pretty excited with the capabilities that it has now that I've spent more time creating with it. But right now we only have 42 lessons in the community with that. And you can see kind of this traditional idea of using it as a seating chart, of using student faces and putting those faces in their location. So my lesson activity info. So we can see with this one, this demo is how students' pictures can be used to create a seating arrangement. Use the points feature of this class type to randomly select a student to answer a question, sharing an idea during class discussion. So that's one way to utilize that feature. I could see that being really good too for like back to school when you're maybe not as familiar with all of the students yet. Just a way to start making those connections of names and faces matched together. I'm gonna go ahead and go through by NUITEQ teachers. So when you see those icons, that is an educator who works with NUITEQ. So here are some examples. So we'll do, let's see, an addition fact for 8. So in my lesson description, I'm going to go ahead and click edit so I can see the description. It's saying use the select feature to randomize the selection to choose a math fact for students to solve. Students swipe the points to the right to show the correct answer. Additional cards can be added to show more problems. So for this, there's the math fact, and the instructions are saying to swipe the card to bring that number to the correct answer. So 8 plus 3. Let me go ahead and lock that in. I would continue swiping until I got to my correct answer. And I check my math on that one. So, and then I could go ahead and I can shuffle that order. So then they continue to be randomized. When I do move, once again, it relocates those tiles. Or in this case, I could do select. And it'll stop on a random one. And again, my students would be able to come up, solve the problem, and then swipe to show the correct answer.
I'm thinking now of all kinds of ways this can be used and want to, get started making more seats activities.
Absolutely. I think I worked all day creating the chicken one, and I had so much fun with it.
Well, the kids love it. I need to get a picture for you.
And I like doing lessons that make me a little bit, I don't want to say uncomfortable because it's a good uncomfortable. It kind of allows me to grow a little bit by doing something that is not in my wheelhouse, and coding is not in my wheelhouse. So I had to think, and I had to teach myself a little bit about this idea of operations and kind of a basic, how could you teach those basic operations to students? And just was a real fun way. Here's another activity. So there's our lesson description. So this is a Christmas themed one. To add decimals, follow these steps. Write down the number, one under the other, with the decimal point lined up, put in zeros so the numbers have the same length, then add the column. Then add using column addition, remembering to put the decimal point in the answer. And for this lesson activity, students play by shuffling the card, select one card, and then write the number on the selected card to the board using the whiteboard feature. So this would be another great activity that you could do using those multiple zones that Snowflake has to offer, and then repeating it again. And then you can even challenge students to select 3 different numbers and add those different amounts. So with this one, I could shuffle, and then my students would add those numbers down together using that column idea. And again, if at any point anyone has any questions, or if you're creating alongside while we're demoing and you get stumped with anything, please let us know. You have both of us tonight, so we can help you with those questions.
Yeah, I kind of like this tag team in the whole
Yes,
thing.
nice.
You came to my rescue with my internet issues.
That was no problem. It's too cold for me to leave my house anyway. It's not like I had anything planned.
Yeah, here too. It's freezing.
All right, we'll do maybe one more. So there's one just in time for leap year. So with this particular lesson activity, this is an example of having created a background. So just using really any drawing program, we use Snagit, but you could also do this just with Google Docs if that's a little bit more accessible or user-friendly for you.
Even Google Draw.
Yeah, that's right, Google Draw, thank you.
Draw. Mm-hmm.
And just save it as a JPEG, and then you can upload that background in. So the directions say move from the word leap to the year by changing just one letter at a time. So the top letter or top word says leap. The goal is supposed to be like a word ladder. And then there's clues along the way, because this is pretty challenging, to help students solve for each row. So one clue would be an untidy pile. So if I had to change only one letter from the word leap, I think an untidy pile is like a heap. So then you can see I'm moving my letters around. Now with this lesson activity, there is no way to check a right or wrong answer, but it's really good for practice and for helping students build some of that resiliency and critical thinking skills. Yeah, I see we do have a question that came up. And I'm thinking, Kelly, this would probably be directed toward you. Are there any updates on when we should expect the boards?
Yeah, and I can just type here to Rebecca.
So my understanding is Hazelwood has ordered a bunch of new interactive panels, and I know you've been working pretty diligently getting those.
Yes, we've already started installation, and teachers are super excited. So I'm trying to keep up with PCs. I'm trying to keep up with the installers.
That's awesome. All right. So I think we've walked you through kind of the basic understanding of the SEATS lesson template. I'll give you just a few minutes more if there's any other questions that you might have on how you can utilize this, or even ideas that, this is still one of our not as more used lesson templates, and it's really great to see how other people are doing it and getting inspired to create with it.
In fact, we would actually like to inspire you guys to create a SEATS lesson. And then if you would like to post that lesson in the community and then hashtag it NUITEQ Snowflake, we'll have a drawing for some, what do we call those, Danielle?
Swag bags.
Swag bags, there we go. And so one of you will be selected and drawn that post your SEATS lesson or activity to the community. With that hashtag, one of you will be just randomly selected to receive some swag bags. So I will send out a link to you this evening, just with a reminder of that. If you wanted to participate, it could be some fun for you. And then we could even get more SEATS activities in our community. And I know Danielle and I, as well as others, would love to see some ideas and things that you come up with, because the SEATS activity template is so versatile. So we just thought we'd make it a little fun for you and have a little, something to offer as far as the swag bags are concerned, because I know everybody loves those. And again, I'll send out a link to everybody so you know what to include.
And to share your lesson, once you've shared your lesson to the community, and as you can see from our dashboard, these are all lessons we've shared to the community. When you select more options and lesson activity info, you have the ability to tweet lessons. So you can use that social media. It would link directly to your account if you have your account obviously on your device. You can also save it to your Pinterest board, share on Facebook, or by clicking the link, copying that link into your social media to share. So, and then just tag us at NUITEQ Snowflake.
And it will ask you whenever you create your lesson before you post to community, to make sure that you have, all of the information for the activities. So you want to make sure that you put the country and the age group and the subject, and it will prompt you if you don't have that information. And that's just so it's easier to find for other educators as well.
All right, well, it looks like we're about 45 minutes or so in. So if there are no other questions, I want to thank Kelly for joining us. I know you've had a pretty crazy day at school, getting everything installed. So we appreciate you being able to come on at night and host some of the webinars.
Absolutely. My apologies for the, internet malfunction, but, hey, nothing like technology, right? We always have some kind of difficulty. But I'm excited about the challenge too, and to see what everybody creates. And it makes me want to, create some other SEATS lessons after the webinar. So, yep. Anybody have any other questions about anything? No? Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. And I know you guys are excited to get in your classrooms and start using the software with your kiddos if you haven't been doing so already.
Yeah, it's great. All right. Thanks again, everyone. So our next webinar will be February 26th at 7 p.m. And it will be about creating classes. So we'll walk you through how to construct your classes, how to link in with Google, with your already established Google Classroom classes, and then managing students, seeing their assignments so that you can have them completing lesson activities on their own device as well. So hopefully you'll join us again next week. Until then, Kelly, I'm sure I'll chat with you later, but bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.